This is Taylor. Are you ready to do that podcast that we wanted to do? Setting up for an adventure, a pantsless odyssey into the imagination.
I'm ready. I'm not actually ready. I have pants on.
Oh, okay. Well,
I went to Fred Meyer this morning to buy a mouse, so I had to put pants on. My computer. I didn't have a mouse for my computer, and I downloaded that the Dungeon Painter application. Do I need to take them off?
no, you'll be all right. I think it's a theme that we can kind of build up into. We don't have to start out of the gate with all checkboxes ticked.
That's true. We can just keep improving as long as we set the bar really low.
Yeah, that sounds
That's
good.
perfect.
How are you liking Dungeon Painter?
What is Dungeon Painter's okay. I don't want to say one thing or the other about it, but I'm liking it. There's a lot I can do. There's a lot of mods in the workshop that people have put on. So I can get like a whole bunch of fantasy weapons packages. It's just like a very nice overlay. I think you can go. I've seen some screenshots of what other people have done, and I'm very excited to explore it more in depth.
Nice.
The one thing like I wish I could kind of do is like a live stream of it with my parties, so I could at least they could watch me move their pieces around for context.
Does it integrate with Roll20 at all?
You can export it as a Roll20 file. What is Roll20 the website?
Yeah, and that's one that does support live movement of player pieces, and you can have like heads-up display of health and stuff like that.
Is that just through the browser? Oh no, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
Play now. Okay, so I could. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I really like that. So yeah, you can export it as a Roll20 file. So then you could probably make an account on here, unless you already have one, and then throw it on. That's really cool. Yeah, because
Nice.
I was looking at the export options because I wanted to make right where my party is right now. They have they're in this ocean, this big flat ocean, but above them, about 8 or 9 feet above them, is it like another opposite ocean. So
Good.
with its own gravity, and so that one is really hard to express through just audio formatting.
Right, I would want to gesture emphatically,
Yeah.
waving my arms above my head. It's like the water, but it's up here.
Yeah, right. Like it's you look up and there's more water, but it's not. It's other water, and so like
It's not your water, it's somebody else's water.
it's somebody else's water. It's not the water you're on. It's the above water. And so I keep changing what I'm calling it because it's so hard to be like, okay, so they're fighting these eels, these giant eels in the water, and the eels are like jumping from the one ocean to the other, and so it's like so they're in your side ocean, and now they've jumped into the
Top ocean.
the top ocean.
I think what would be really great is if one of the eels grabbed one of the characters, took them to the top ocean, so now everything is upside down to that character, and you just completely deconstruct all the terms that you're using because they no longer apply.
Right. No, that's we stopped mid encounter, so one of us could go to bed, and I'm gonna prepare so I can have an actual context for this next one, and we can have this going on. If everybody can access Roll20, then that would be way better.
Nice. Now, I don't know if Roll20 does 3D Inception style mapping. So
Well, and it doesn't need to
best of
because
luck
what
with
I've made 2 squares with for context the boat that they drove out to. It's like the only contextual point of distance is that in the center of the battle grid there is the boat that they arrived on. It's just a little dinghy, and so on one side of the map, and then separated by just some blank vacuous space, is an identical grid which has a faded out boat in it. So that's the flip side.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So when I have them play on, I can just move them over to the other board. That's my plan, at least. And
Yeah,
I
that
tried
should
to
work.
construct this like crappy. So they're fighting these giant eels, which I've described as like twice the length of school buses, and 2 school buses, one in front of the other, and where was I going with this? They're fighting these, and I tried to create like the shadow of one underneath the boat using just painting the ground a roofing tile texture, and I tried to create an eel. It's pretty ridiculous.
Out of roofing tile texture.
Yeah, and then I faded it and layered it underneath, so it kind of
Nice.
looks.
So yeah, you're
it
getting
looks
pretty
okay,
artistic with it.
but it is like I did not have. Yeah, I'm not. I didn't look at any tutorials on how to use this. I was just trying to construct something because this is like there's no. I just want to put more detail into this grid because it's literally just water, and then a boat in the middle, and just a tiny. And that boat is just made out of an oval, made out of a wood grain texture.
Nice.
It's like that's all I need, especially because most of everything we're doing is through Skype, so I don't need a ton of contextualization, just enough to help me get through it.
So we're about 5-6 minutes in. Do we want to talk about what our goal was for this?
Oh yeah, sure. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah. So setting up for adventure, we are both GMs or DMs depending on the system, and we really like running games, and we end up coming up with a lot of ideas for campaigns that we know will never see the light of players.
Well, we're very busy people, and yeah, we can't have all of our dreams come to fruition, come to interactive fruition in a RPG format, because we have all these ideas and we can only meet and play them with our respective
Sure.
groups.
Both.
Yeah. Every now and then. So I don't know about you, but I always write just miles ahead of the adventure and spin-offs, and there are moments when I've like considered just like writing short stories about NPCs just so I can like get my fix.
Yeah, well, yeah, because for GMs, for storytellers, and that sort of role, it really becomes a creative outlet. It's some combination of improv, of storytelling, of world building, and yeah, it can be super engrossing. And I know we've come up with whole ideas or divergent paths. I think after every session, I think of 10 different ways that it could go, and then the players choose the 11th.
Right, that's the thing. That's like when citizens, my coworkers in various places, I'm sure absolutely love to hear me talk about my D&D campaign that they have nothing to do with. But one of the things I always describe it as, it's like you being a DM is building a sandcastle, a really, really nice sandcastle, and then the tide comes in and knocks it all over.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it's like writing a story where you actually don't know what any of your characters are going to do.
Right. It's like, do you let them hit the beats or do you just shove them into the story beats that you've written, or do you create them? Finding that balance is the most, I think, is where you get the most satisfaction out of everything.
Yeah, because I know for me, I don't think I plan as thoroughly as you do. You definitely plan farther out ahead, and then I try to hit a lot of beats and a lot of story, and then one of my favorite ways of preparing anymore is just coming up with random generators, so that if I'm caught off guard by a monster or by a situation, anywhere from an NPC to like a plot hook or something, I've made a bunch of different random generators so I can just kind of go with it on the fly, just because I do really like seeing where players are going to take me. Because I've definitely done that thing where, like, okay, so the story is going to be there's this haunted mansion and they go through and they climb up the stairs and people are like, oh, sick, is that an amusement park across the street? And it's like, yeah, it forms the foreboding background. It's like, we want to go to the haunted amusement park. Like, cool. Yeah, we don't need the house. Come back to that later. Maybe those ghosts can be malignant and wander around the streets next Halloween. But for now, we're going to the amusement park. Rad. And then you have a different story in front of you. And I really dig that.
True. I mean, yeah, the thing there is, like, you have to kind of make... You want to populate your environment with really interesting things, but if you really, really want them to do the thing you want them to do, you have to make the focal point the most interesting thing. You can't put a creepy mansion next to an abandoned amusement park and then expect and hope that they go into the mansion.
Yeah.
Like, they just won't. They'll always do, and they'll always, I mean, and they'll attach onto the amusement park too, and they'll assume that it is important, is just as important as the house.
Yeah. Well, and if the house is super important, you can always do the thing where maybe the person who owned the house, or the ghost that's haunting the house, also owned the amusement park. So something you intended to just be a backdrop can now be tied into this mansion thing later. So they go have this crazy shenanigans in the amusement park, picking up little clues of who this person was, and now they're doing the follow-up at the house. So it's kind of like, if it is really important for your story to be the one that's told, there's ways to tie it back in. And I think over planning can sometimes make that more difficult, but definitely under planning, I feel like you start missing opportunities for like really cool plot twists and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think having the twists is like the most important part. Because when I'm planning my adventure, like I want, first and foremost, I want my characters to feel like they're the baddest of asses, like out of everything, and to have. Sometimes, like if you have the DM take the reins and say like, this is part of your character, that's gonna help them. I mean, if you do it too much, then it's poisonous. But knowing that eventually there's a character element to them that they don't know can be really, really cool if it's delivered right. And I hope I can make that happen like every time that I plan for something like it.
Yeah. So it's not you like dictating how the character has to play. You just get to reveal something cool about that player, and then the player still gets to have the agency to, react to this new character development as they want. But it's still like a cool, exciting moment. It's like the super advanced version of giving them not just a random item, but an item that's specifically been designed for them to be excited about. You give them a little plot hook that's specifically designed for them to be excited about.
Exactly. So one of the things I want to do in my campaign is write, there's 4 players. And so I have these 4 character flashback episodes, which are kind of like encounters, but they're going to be, the way that I'm writing them into the story is that they have a trigger where if the characters do a certain thing, I'm gonna just stop the whole adventure on its rails, and that thing is gonna start. And so they're like, I'm trying to design it so that it can be a moment that interrupts at any point, and it doesn't overthrow. It doesn't like change anything about the present. But they've now made a realization that I have to take them back and give them some context for. So, like, one example is that my one of my players is secretly, like, an avatar of an entire realm. And
yeah, right, nice.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is the moment one of the adventurers, one of my players, I have to tell them not to listen to this now. The moment one of them thinks to themselves or says out loud, hey, do you think you might be, or hey, am I one of these things? I'm going to stop the campaign, and I'm going to take them back to the moment they forgot that they were.
Well, and I think that sounds like a good trigger for it, because then, like, the moment that question is happening, they've already introduced it. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, so they, and that's even part of the plot, is that there's a force that is actively trying to manipulate these heroes by selecting certain memories for them to forget, so that they can continue to be instruments of the malevolent power. And so having these avatars are so powerful that just the consideration that they might be what they are is enough to bring their mental faculties back to them.
Rad.
So it's all there. It's just I need I'm going to orient it to them. And so one of the things that I want to do to give them agency is I'm asking them details about their past, so I can fold that into these flashbacks as well. So it's not just me retconning their history, it's me adding to it.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, and I feel like that's the way to go. And I think picking up bits and bits along the way kind of gives you the opportunity to not be like, if they say, am I this person? You could be like, we're going to another encounter now. By the way, what was your dad's name? Where are you from? It'll be important. It'll be really cool. You're gonna be really excited when this shows up later. Like about an hour from now, you're gonna be like, "Oh my god, that's my dad's name."
Yeah,
It's-
I've got to get that ready beforehand.
Yeah.
That would be ridiculous. I'd be like, hey, so what would be something like if you like saw it again? It would just bring you back to your youth. Some like symbol of that, just like throw you back, give you a little bit of a
Yeah.
little recall.
Yeah, just throw in a couple of awkwardly nosy NPCs that were talking about, like, you know what my childhood fears are? I was afraid of spiders and being left alone. What are your childhood fears?
Let's share. I just feel like opening up. What about you guys? Let's play 10 Fingers.
Yeah. It's like, Carter, this is the new villain. Are you attacking us right now? Do we have to roll initiative against this crazy warlock? Is that...
Never have I ever been an orphan. What about you guys? What are the details going into that? Every D&D player is an orphan. That's just fucking...
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I think...
90% of players make their characters orphans.
Yeah, I am so glad that I'm no longer playing in World of Darkness books, and I will try not to throw shade to too many systems as we're discussing this. I think between you and I, we've played a fair number, but probably a small percentage of everything that exists out there. I came up mainly through, way back when, before I kind of knew that I was role-playing, I came up through internet forums.
Yeah.
I RP'd on a virtual battle school. It was an Ender's Game style setting where you were kids in the virtual battle school in the Ender's Game world. And I did that for a while and then got into a Vampire the Masquerade LARP when I was far too young to be LARPing in a Vampire the Masquerade LARP. 13 years old? Yeah. Too young for Vampire the Masquerade. But World of Darkness
That's
is
a pretty
just...
adult
Yeah.
adult themes, huh?
Yeah, there was a lot of murder, and that's if you're lucky. Just World of Darkness is, it's designed to be as grim, darky, and edgy as it possibly can be. So every other plot has to be about who's getting sexually assaulted this week, or what children are now random orphans wandering the streets that monsters are snatching up. And nope, you're not going to kill the monster and save all the children. Those children are dead now.
They're gone. You can save the last child, the one, the last couple that are still just hanging around the orphanage, haven't gotten snatched yet.
Yeah, actually, please do save those children so I can bring them back as the traumatized villains 2 arcs from now when they manifest spiritual dark powers.
There's no winning here. There's just preparing for worse things later.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'd be a fun one to play. My earliest role playing was my long hour-long school bus rides in the mornings and afternoons of elementary school.
Oh, that's opportunistic.
Yeah, there was just there's a girl I sat with on the bus because we got off at the same stop, and we would just talk through. I think I had another friend we would do. So I'd have 2 different things going. It was just the 2 of us, and we would just create a story and continue it. And it was of course it was full of immature, childish elements, but that was the first. It was just we just would constantly do it, and I didn't even think about that doing that for a few years. But actually, I have been doing role playing games for a long time.
Yeah, that's super
just
cool.
Not in any physical format or virtual format. Just it was entire audio, and we didn't write anything down. We just remembered and forgot and added on to what we had done the last time.
Yeah, and that's really at the base of it, because it kind of feels like role-playing games oftentimes are built of different proportions of 2 pillars. There's the math and the story, and those abstract games where it's just talking to the bus. And actually remembering in elementary school, for me 3rd grade or something, I used to play with some of the younger kids what they called the stick game, where we would just take a piece of bark from the playground and that would be their little character, and they like walk it around on the like the slide and all of that stuff, and I describe the story and the setting of their little stick character going around in this world. And like, yeah, that's like the super story heavy. Like there's no stats, there's no numbers, there's nothing like that.
But you would just do something and you'd want to do it. It's like Axe Cop.
Yeah,
like the guy that writes it with his nephew, and like he talked about in the forward, like he had to like talk to his nephew about like, you know, shouldn't these bad guys, should some of them be a little tougher than just like taking one hit? It's like, and the nephew's like, nah, the Axe Cop just wipes out everything, no matter how badass. It's just like
super good.
yeah, so then like and it makes such a great story, and there's no rules to it.
Yeah, I mean, that said, I love spreadsheets. I have a very high love of spreadsheets and math, and when I get into games, I always like to build up my ratios and formulas and probability charts and stuff like that. But I'm definitely not like a min-maxer sort of thing. I just like looking at the numbers and seeing what that's like. So I don't know. Like I think there's definitely opinions and schools of thought on both sides that say like you need stats to be a game, otherwise it's not a game. People really like to throw around words about what is and is not games.
Right, and it's like anything is. Really, as if it has no real world impact, it's probably a game.
Yeah,
like I think all of that preparation and all of the number crunching you do behind the scenes is like, however much you want to do is fine. Once you bring it to the table though, and everybody's ready to play, you want to like the best RPG rule books are the ones where it's like all of the work. You do all the work outside of the actual storytelling and the actual playing the game. And is the least amount of rules you have to refer to as possible while you're actually playing, the better. But that said, having dice and having elements that provoke randomness, and so that you aren't always just doing it perfectly every time, is, you know, leads to the best moments when heroes screw something up and have to deal with that. And if you do it like in a funny improvisational way, then that's when you get the inside jokes and the memories that last a lifetime.
It's beautiful.
It's just so nice.
Okay, so going far out there, what is your favorite or currently something that you're super into wacky setting? Either like alt history or fantasy or sci-fi, or just kind of like if you could do any sort of over the top, just whatever you wanted setting.
Oh man, I'm going back to Wonderpunk because I can't stop thinking about it. Wonderpunk would be the idea that.
Oh, right. We were talking about the Seven Wonders of the World. Yeah,
the Seven Wonders of the World being the basis for future architects from then to now. I mean, this would be a kind of a dark world where like indentured servitudes probably, you know, and slavery still exists because you need laborers. So that's where like the punk elements would come from. Any story would be about the lowest probably caste of people. But the idea, the world would be really, really shiny because all of the prestigious architects are essentially trying to one up every wonder that has come before it. So starting from the seven original wonders, people are trying to build better pyramids. People are trying to build better hanging gardens, giant statues of heroic people. And so the entire world is just covered in the most bizarre, amazing constructions that have ever been like seen before. You think you described it as like Dubai, but the world.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So do you have magic in the setting or anything like that, or is it just kind of like hard to believe science?
Hard to believe science would probably be the root of it, because once you go magic, it's harder to justify some. I think like you get like there's a lot of them. I like the idea that everything was built by people, and magic would make it easy, right? Like you wouldn't have with magic it in any capacity, like whatever it is, because unless you set really, really strict laws and rules to the magic, it's like, well, why don't they just, you know, enchant a bunch of robots to build all their stuff for them? Why don't they, or like automatons, or why don't they just levitate everything into place and create magical seals that like, and you know, change shape gravity so things can like stay up? I would want it to be like very physical and mechanical, and like everything, you would see these massive city-sized scaffolding and laborers that are all over it, like working on it. They would live like towns, like communities would spring up in the scaffolding of the next wonder, because this might take someone's entire life they're working on it, or generations of people, to build the next new thing.
Yeah, and we were talking about like that idea of like pyramids upon pyramids. When the next giant castle is built on top of the last three castles, that lower caste starts just living out of those shells of now abandoned monuments. That like that architect died. Their legacy is now being covered up by somebody else's legacy that probably lasts maybe a century or so before it's built over again. And so you have these like catacombs of massive like hallways and ceremonial tombs that each and of itself is just like a beautiful work of art and like engineering that's now just full of the counterculture, the builders who or like the children of builders and the children and children and children and so on and so forth. So you get these whole societies that exist pretty much entirely underground because there's just so many buildings that go up and up and up.
Yeah, and I think that would be just such a cool world setting for any kind of like adventure. Not like, you know, and still not like a high fantasy. You still not sword and sorcery, but like I guess like Shadowrun a little bit of futurism to it. You have, because if it was today, you'd have gadgets. You could set it though far back enough where there's still not a lot of automated or digital technology, because the advent of that would really change how everything is done, because people could have, you know, architects, instead of having to build their models, could do it all with software. And that, like, deciding on whether or not they have that at their fingertips would, I think, severely change what the landscape looks like.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that could be really interesting is if you put it in like recent past, maybe like 100 years ago, you could kind of like explore those themes of if this world emphasized architecture and construction so much, what technology developed more quickly at the cost of other technology. So,
True.
For example, like you could say like maybe wars were never really fought with an arms race. They were fought with bigger and bigger buildings, right? Or maybe structural sabotage. So maybe the most modern weapons are still like sticks and swords and stuff like that, or maybe siege weapons because they're just an extension of construction equipment. But you don't get guns, you don't get bombs, you don't get that sort of thing because, you know, the development into war technology was never really emphasized culturally, and so instead you get this you know, advances, almost modern era scaffolding and construction and cranes and everything like that, but you don't have the same sort of communications technology or the same sort of weapons technology.
Yeah, one thing that would have to be really like developed as quickly as possible would be means to transport raw materials.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have these giant freight machines like that are whether they be trains or boats or airships, like whatever can get you the raw materials to make stuff happen the fastest.
Mm-hmm.
And where these raw materials are still coming from, because that would be a question. You know, way later on is like we're running out of stone. And
right, yeah, like we need to dig deeper. We need to like, yeah, no, that would be super cool. Yeah,
cool. So Wonderpunk is my cool idea. If I was ever going to do an adventure in it, it would have to just be, oh man, there'd just be so much work into like I'd have to go really micro, I think, so that it wasn't like an insane challenge to flavor the the world that the players would work around. It would just be like one place for like a huge arc, and then maybe they'd go to like 2 or 3 places.
I mean, you could have it something where like the first couple sessions are just getting out from the bowels of a pyramid and discovering that there's an outside world.
Oh, that would be
like
awesome.
Almost like Gurren Lagann style, right?
Yeah, not even preface what this campaign is like, but just be like, this is the world. Maybe it'd be a kind of like a mistaken identity thing. I haven't seen Mad Men, but I was told that it starts with the main character like trying to fill the shoes of somebody he's not, right?
I also haven't seen Mad Men, but we can definitely keep talking about this show.
Anyway, but the idea being that like the players get mistaken for very important people somehow,
right.
When really they were just brought up, like they were they have no idea what, and so somehow they're like forced into being able to see a lot more of the world from seeing almost none of it.
Yeah. One of the things that I was thinking about too, in terms of because you mentioned it might having to be grimdark, I feel like you could also take it in the opposite direction. Maybe have both exist in the same world, where there's a certain amount, like there's certain architects or certain cultures that give a lot of reverence to the people who build.
Oh.
The wonders, right? Because like there's probably going to be some where like I couldn't do this without you. You are truly the most valuable resources in building my wonder. And then other people are like, you are but dust that I will eventually wipe off my great building.
Yeah, so having in some societies laborers be the highest caste of people,
Yeah.
that would be really cool. That'd be a lot more positive.
Yeah, just because like it's one of those things with like, okay, if I'm going to commit to a whole campaign setting, and this setting kind of makes me feel depressed, is this game going to be fun?
Yeah, that is the thing. This has been setting up for adventure. We should have another tagline, like something else to say about it.
Okay, yeah, we can play with it with a couple of others. I was kind of digging the feel of a Pantsless Odyssey into Imagination, but
oh yeah,
I
definitely.
think that might be misconstrued.
Yeah, it's a little might be misconstrued. It might be a little too sexy.
Yeah.
I'll think about it.
Yeah,
and we'll hit you up next time. We have a Gmail now.
Oh yeah, as of 10 minutes ago. 5 minutes
As of
ago?
between dropping calls and reconnecting. We have settingadventure@gmail.com if you want to send us a message or a story about a campaign that you're building, or something you thought was really cool, or if you want to send us an RPG setting, rule book, any kind of literature about that. I love reading those types of things. I love flipping to the settings, like the details of the planes in the D&D books, just like reading.
Oh yeah.
Reading descriptions about fantasy worlds, and yeah, we love chatting about it.
Or if you decide to play any of the things or experiment with any of the things that we talk about in this podcast, which you are 100% welcome and even encouraged to do.
Oh yeah, the first rule of role-playing games is steal everything.
Yeah.
So, to go ahead, we won't be mad. We'll actually really appreciate it, probably.
Yeah, it would be super cool. Yeah, so if you end up playing anything that you hear and you want to tell us about it, or like share little versions, that would be phenomenal. Like if somebody ends up running a Wonder Punk campaign, and you know Carter, how I feel about punk being a suffix, but I feel like
we can talk about that next time.
Yeah, next time on Taylor rants about punk as a suffix. Well, this has been Taylor Smith.
I'm Carter Allen.
We just did this podcast. See you next time.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, talk to you later, Carter.
See you later.